Karamo Brown, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming to the studio.
Kai.
Hi. we had a little joke before we sat down. It's a little out of context, but whatever. So look, we're going to get to you and the book and the show and all that stuff in a minute. But I want to pull out a thread that's actually in the book about, in essence, how you wound up doing what you're doing.
Yes.
And it's a guy we've had on this program, RuPaul.
Yes.
I want you to tell me what it was about RuPaul that made you say, I want to do that.
Well, my two personal heroes are Phil Donahue and RuPaul. And when I was in I think it was 8th grade.
Yeah, you were a kid.
Yeah, I was a kid. He had a VH1 talk show that not many people know about because they only know about him from either being a drag performer or RuPaul's Drag Race.
Right.
And it was on one day while I was doing my homework, and I just heard him being inspirational, because he always starts with a little bit of inspiration, ends with a little inspiration. That's not really his gig. But for my young ears, it was like, what is that? Who is that? And I knew I didn't want to dress in drag.
Yeah, no, that's not it, right? Yeah.
But seeing a black gay man do something that was inspiring people immediately resonated with me.
I led with that because it is clear through this book and what I've read about you and seeing you on the show that you are extremely intentional. You have a plan all the time.
Yes.
Like since forever.
Yes.
What would have happened, do you suppose, if things had not gone according to plan? Because you did the Real World Philadelphia, and it was a terrible experience for you. You got lucky getting on Queer Eye because you squeezed in at the last minute.
Yep.
You have a plan, but you kind of live on the edge.
Yeah. Well, I believe that's the way you're supposed to act.
Ooh, say more about that.
Yeah. So something that I tell my children all the time, and I've actually shared on Queer Eye, is this
two kids, by the way, 2 boys.
2 sons, yeah, one biological, one adopted, is this mantra of plan, do, ask for help if needed. I think it's very important for you to have clear intention about where you want to go and to go after it by doing the steps and the work that needs to be done. But along the line, things are going to pop up that don't give you what you thought the outcome should be. And that's when you have to ask for help and readjust. And so Real World was not in the plan. Then it became in the plan, and I went with it. But it was a horrible experience for me.
Yeah.
And so after that, I had to readjust. And I think that's part of what you just have to do in life, of knowing that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it. And if you can use failure as gifts that are given to you to get to the life you want, then you'll always be great.
Okay, so season 1 of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So you get on the show, and it's all great, and, the 5 guys, and you're having a good time, and all of that. But in the course of filming season 1, it's your sense, as you say in the book, that the producers are trying to put you into a slot that you maybe are not happy with. They want you to talk about plays and art and this and that, and you're like, I'm more internal than external culture.
Yeah.
And then you watch season 1 when it airs, and tell me what you saw of yourself.
I was completely embarrassed because of season 1. Yeah. And part of the embarrassment came from, I watched the first episode with my children, and my sons mean the world to me. And as a parent, when you see your sons confused by your actions, it makes you really think. And they were like, here's our father who's educated, who worked as a social worker and a psychotherapist for many years, and he's making photo albums on an international program. Right. And I was embarrassed by that. And I understood what they were trying to do. Queer Eye, for the most part, from the original iteration to now, has been a visual show. People like to see physical makeovers. Right. So though I'm a mental health professional, it's like, how do you show that? And I think that we underestimated the audience, to where now, with season 3 coming out, they are like, Karamo, go full force, have the emotional makeovers, help people understand why they haven't had a haircut in 20 years, why they haven't changed their clothes in 20 years, why they're self-deprecating. Go for it, because the audience is craving those type of tools just as much as they're craving, how do I do my hair and how do I change my clothes?
I want to ask you about this show in this moment in this country. Mm-hmm. It is no longer Queer Eye for the straight guy. Yeah. It's just Queer Eye with a very intentional change of purpose.
Yes, because we're in a space where that whole gay guys switching straight men is unnecessary.
Right.
Many straight men have the same knowledge and tools that I have, and we would be remiss and ignorant to believe that they don't. There are people who are male or female, straight or gay, who have many different intersections, who need just a little push in the right direction. And that's what I loved about coming back with the show, is that, especially in season 3, there are men, women, it's equally half and half, because now it's just like, let's help everyone. And I think it's important that, especially in a space where most people don't understand that their behaviors are hurting them, to have someone like myself on the show and to have a book like this that people can use at home to give them advice so that they can stop believing in those negative narratives they've heard their entire life so they can live better lives.
That's so funny you call this an advice book, because it's really not. It's your life's. There's no, subparagraph of here's what you do in this situation. It's you, iterating your story.
Well, I don't think that advice has to be what we have normally come accustomed to, where it's like step 1, step 2. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of us learn from other people's examples. That's why shows like Queer Eye, the media, are so important to us, because someone living their life shows you a roadmap of what you can do. And the stories that I discuss in the book are universal. How to deal with addiction, how to deal with physical abuse. Yeah. And I do share what I did to get out of that, but I also give some examples of what you can do to have those hard conversations with people in your life, which is that direct advice.
Important point, not to be glossed over.
Yeah.
Here you are in your sparkly baseball jacket and designer frames.
This is a bomber jacket.
It's a bomber jacket, you're right. Sorry, it's a baseball hat.
Baseball hat, yeah.
But look, you actually have been there. You've been in addiction, and you've been in an abusive household, right?
Yes.
So you know whereof you speak.
Mm-hmm. I have. I've been through these things. And a lot of times people will contact me on social media and say, you don't understand because you've never lived it. And I say, no. I've went through the gambit of it. I've had addiction. I've went through a household of physical abuse, emotional abuse. I have been a single parent who was making $40,000 a year trying to support 2 children. Social workers don't make that much, and people didn't know.
But you've also been the guy who, after Real World, and probably now too, can get paid $10,000 for showing up at a club in Hollywood and sticking around for 30 minutes.
I did after the Real World. Yeah. Those days are gone. There's no more club appearances.
No more club appearances. Yeah, well,
after the Real World, but at that time, I didn't have the guidance from my parents to know how to even manage that money. And so I even talk about that a bit in the book of like, how do you manage the opportunities that are coming towards you? I have been blessed to have many down times in my life, but also many good times. But I never understood how to use these to create the life I want, and now I do.
So let me ask you a little bit of a poke in the eye question.
Yeah,
here.
poke me.
And it's gonna sound political, and I really don't mean it to, but you're a deeply thoughtful man who makes his living now on a reality television show, who got his break in reality television 15
years ago, exactly.
And we live in a society and an economy which is deeply fractured, at least in part because of reality television.
Okay.
Discuss.
So I was on a reality show 15 years ago where I added to that fractured nature, where I was all about the arguments and no solutions. And I then took a 12-year break. Let's be clear about that, where I worked on myself and went back to being in my career. And when I made the decision to come back to television out of the inspiration of my child saying, live your dreams, I decided I can't go back into this space where I am adding to the division that we're feeling in our country. And so it was an intentional choice to make sure that if I was going to be back in TV, that I was going to do things that were going to somehow try to heal and help us to grow. And so just because at one point I was part of the problem doesn't mean that doesn't give me the authority to be part of the solution. And so what Queer Eye has done for me is given me an opportunity to say to people, yeah, at one point I was a little ass and I didn't know what to do. But now I've learned, and now if you're in that space in your life, at work, at home, where things are not right, you too can figure it out and grow. You might have to take a step away, self-reflect, figure out who's around you, reorganize your tribe, but you can do it if you really are intentional about it and want the best results.
I don't know, let's say this show goes another 5 seasons, right?
Yeah.
What does
you know something I don't know?
What does the show look like in 5 years?
Well, I think it's the same thing it will look like when it was on 12 years ago. People are always craving for someone to see them and acknowledge them. I think that is one thing that never changes. We all live these very isolated lives, especially now with social media, where you feel like I'm not doing enough because I see everyone else living their best life, enjoying life, and you feel alone. It's so funny. We're so connected, but we feel so alone. And so to have people come into your life and say, you know what? Just for these 5 days, you're going to be the center of attention. For 5 days, we're going to want to see you be better. For 5 days, we're going to give you all the tools we have so that you can walk away and feel like more confidently about doing what you want to do. 5 years from now, that's how we're still going to need to do. 10 years from now, the human spirit and human connection is so important, and we can never forget that. That's what we're all here for. If aliens came down tomorrow, I'm not saying I believe in aliens, we're going to realize very quickly that these little differences we have about race, about sex, about sexual orientation, about gender, they don't matter. Because at the end of the day, we all want love, we all want support, we all want someone to care for us and to show that back to other people.
Not to get too marketplace on you, but that answer was race, sex, gender, and a couple of other things. There was not economic class and status in there.
Well, that's important as well. I didn't finish. I kind of stopped there. You know what I mean? And it's the truth because, in all honesty, a lot of the people that we work with are not rich.
Right.
They don't have anything. And again, I kind of detail this a bit in my book, but I share about the fact that graduating from college and moving to California, which is the economy is very high and it's very expensive here, making the salary I was making, but giving 15 hours a day sometimes trying to help kids in the foster care system, it was hard because I would say to myself, I'm doing good, yet I'm not getting anything. And sometimes just having someone say, I'll buy you lunch today or I'll help you out was the kindest thing to me. And of course now, I'm sure my finances have changed, but I still remember where I was just 3 years ago. This is not that far removed from me. I'm not like one of these individuals who were raised with a silver spoon in my mouth and now I've always lived with private planes. I still have never been on a private plane, you know what I mean?
Just for the record.
Yeah, I remember the first time I was in first class the other day. It's a very real experience for me. But when we help these individuals, I do understand what it is to have that economic divide, that class divide, that financial divide that makes you feel like I don't have access. In my book, I talk about rehab when I was going through my addiction. And the reason I didn't go to rehab was not because I didn't want to. It's because in my family, addiction was for rich people. The news said you go on a 4-day vacation to some resort and by the beach. And that wasn't a reality to us when we had not even traveled out the country really ever in my life. So, I want people to realize that no matter what your financial status is, yes, there is a divide there, but you still deserve help, you still deserve support, and you still can make it out of that.
Karamo Brown, you know him from Queer Eye? He's got a book out too called Karamo. Thanks for coming. That's a smart title, man.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. Good.
Good?
Yeah, good deal.
Thanks, man.
Good stuff. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, it's a good book. It's a good book.
Thank you.